Merry Christmas, y'all. Let's make some cookies. Meet our chef.
Hi, I'm Holly. We're going to be making sugar shortbread Christmas cookies with royal icing on top. Very simple. I will leave the recipe in the description down below if you want to go check that out. Super simple. They taste really, really good. And you can get about 25 cookies out of it depending on how big your little shapes are. It's one of those recipes where you roll out the dough. You can shape it or just make circles, squares, whatever you are feeling. Like I said, it's really simple, very easy, very quick. And I'm going to show you what the ingredients are now. So first we have almond milk. You can use regular milk or coconut milk. I like almond milk because it makes it taste a little bit better in my opinion. We've got flour. We just have regular all-purpose flour, not self-rising flour. We've also got some powdered sugar, regular granulated sugar. You'll need both different types. We have some baking powder, vanilla, some butter. You can use unsalted butter. I think the regular salted butter just tastes a little bit better. We have some paper towels for easy cleanup. We have our KitchenAid Classic Plus mixer. Awesome. If you don't have a mixer, it's going to be a little bit more difficult when you're rolling out your dough or when you're just mixing your dough. It's going to be pretty difficult. We are going to use the bread dough / dough in general attachment. That's going to break up your butter and make everything mix a little bit more easily. We have some 1 cup and 1/2 cup measuring spoons. Everything is either half or whole cups, so that makes it very, very simple. We have a rolling pin to roll out the dough as soon as you get it mixed. And then we have cookie cutters to get our shapes. I have like a stocking, a reindeer, a present, snowman, and a, what's the other one?
That's a reindeer.
A Christmas tree.
That's a stocking.
And last but not least.
That's a Christmas tree. What else do we have? What is this?
That is a present.
Oh, that's a present.
And we have some food coloring because if you want, as soon as you mix the icing, it's going to be white. So if you want some color in it, definitely get some food coloring.
Wait, hold it closer where they can see it.
I'm gonna show you the one that I'll probably use the most, the classic blue food coloring. We are also going to have the whisk attachment on our KitchenAid mixer. This is for the icing. You're not gonna use this for the dough. You're going to use this other attachment for the dough. You're gonna use the whisk for the royal icing and a spatula.
You need one of these things too.
You need a spatula because I have found that since your butter has to be chilled and cubed, your dough is probably gonna mix for about 20-25 minutes, which is a little bit of a long time, but this will definitely come in handy when you're getting it all together. And you're going to wanna preheat your oven to 350 degrees.
I got that.
And like I said, I'm gonna leave the recipe description in the link. Oh my gosh, the recipe link in the description down below if you wanna go check that out. This was the first recipe that I came across and the cookies turned out really, really good. I haven't heard a bad thing about them yet. So we're gonna get to work. And also, make a side note, you can also put salt in your dough recipe. I do not put salt in the recipe. It makes them taste like they're just full of salt in my opinion. If you wanna put some, don't put any more than just like a little sprinkle or a dash or maybe a teaspoon at all. I don't want your dough to come out too salty and then it's all ruined. The only thing that you could probably add more of, should you want, is vanilla or almond milk. So now we are going to get the dough ready and then we will see you for the icing.
Let's go.
All right, so now we're gonna start with our flour. So you're gonna have initially 3 cups and you're also going to have some more to sprinkle on the dough so it doesn't stick to your rolling pin. You need 3 cups, this is 1. Tap it just slightly.
Here, you want me to pour it?
No, I'm good.
Hey, get in.
Looks like we will just have just enough, which is so awesome. 2, 1 more cup. 3, and you can always add just a little bit more if you think you need to. We're gonna set that aside for our dough when we roll it out. Now you're going to need 2 teaspoons of baking powder. I didn't grab a teaspoon. Could you get one for me?
Sure.
It's not gonna be that much. It just helps them to rise a little bit. While he's grabbing that, this is a teaspoon. Okay, so we're gonna have 2 of these. And this is one ingredient that you don't want to over measure on. You want to have exactly the amount that you need. And I didn't put a little bit.
Not too much, not too little.
Right, there you go. We're going to set that aside, and now we're going to need a half of a teaspoon of salt. Like I said, I'm not going to include that in my dough. You can, I just don't love it. 16 tablespoons of unsalted butter, cubed and chilled. That's right here.
So you need a knife?
You need a knife. So 1 stick, I'm just using the Land Lakes regular butter. This is 8 tablespoons. We need 16, so I'm just gonna use 2 sticks of butter. And I'm also going to cut it. And it does need to be chilled. If you use melted butter or even just slightly softened butter, your dough's not gonna turn out to the right consistency that you're gonna need it to be.
So you're gonna cut your butter into slices?
So I'm just going to cube it. And this is going to take just a second. So I'm gonna set those aside and just wipe my hands a little bit. I'm now going to re-pull up my recipe, and the next thing is 1 cup of sugar. Now, you're going to use the regular granulated sugar for the recipe. Your powdered sugar is for your icing. This is not. So I'm just gonna take my whole cup measuring spoon. Like I said earlier, this is one of those ingredients that doesn't really matter how much you put in there.
Well, you don't want
As
to
long
put
as
way
it's
too
close
much.
to the
It'll be
amount.
too sweet if you put in too much.
Right. Just put a little bit more. I'm going to set that aside. Next, you're going to need 1 large egg. So now we have our 1 large egg. And when I was making my first batch, I found that if you have a paper towel sitting right beside it, you can just drop the shell and toss it in the trash.
Hey, wait, let me show you something. Watch.
Yeah.
Here's my way to crack an egg.
There you go. Then you can just toss it away. And there's always that argument like, should I mix the wet ingredients with only wet ingredients, dry with only dry? For this dough, it doesn't really matter. It's all gonna get mixed in anyway. And I found that it doesn't affect the texture nor the flavor of your dough or your cookies. So last ingredient for the dough is gonna be 1 tablespoon of vanilla extract. You don't really need to measure this very critically. Vanilla is kind of just one of those, measure to taste kind of things.
Hey, after you crack your egg, make sure you wash your hands really good. You don't want salmonella for Christmas.
And this recipe says 1 tablespoon, but I'm just gonna do about 1.5 teaspoons.
A little smidgen extra.
Right, I'm just gonna do 1.5 teaspoons.
A little vanilla goes a long way.
Right, vanilla is very concentrated, and if you put too much, your dough is not going to turn out good. Texture will be off, flavor will be off, and it's just not gonna taste very good. So that is gonna be all for our dough. And next, I'm going to add my bowl to the mixer. Here we go.
Watch the KitchenAid work its magic.
And I washed my hands beforehand. Always wash yours, especially if you're cooking food for other people. Next, I'm going to attach the top. And you're gonna wanna start on low at first. Now, when the butter is all clumped together with the flour and the sugar, that's when you can kind of turn up the notch a little bit. But because our butter is not melted nor softened just yet, you don't want it to throw your flour all out of the mixer. Yep, this is gonna take about 15 to 20 minutes. I know that's a long time, but these are really, really good cookies, and I think it's well worth it to wait.
Okay, so we're gonna jump right to the part where the mixing's all done. Okay, we're gonna stop and add just a little bit of almond milk after about, what, 6 minutes of stirring?
About 6 or 7, right? Doesn't really matter how much you put in, it's really just your preference.
So why are you gonna measure it then?
It's just my preference. I'm gonna put about 4 teaspoons in, 3 or 4. Don't put too much. You don't want your batter to be gummy. Your dough batter.
Gummy?
Dough. Yeah, you get a gummy dough.
Okay, we're gonna let it stir for what, about 7, 8 more minutes?
About 10.
Okay, at about, what, about 9 minutes?
9 or 10 minutes.
8 or 9 minutes, 10 minutes, that's what your dough looks like.
Right.
Just checking in. Sabotage
All right.
my GoPro.
So.
All right, we're gonna get some video of
Yep.
showing this dough being stirred. All right, let's do it.
This is what your dough is going to look like as soon as it's ready. When it looks like this, you know it's ready to be taken out, rolled, shaped, and put in the oven.
All right.
And at this point, our oven has already been preheated and is at full temperature, 350 degrees Fahrenheit.
Isn't this oddly satisfying, just watching dough being mixed?
Yep. That's when you know it's all ready to be rolled, when it sticks together, when it's slightly tacky, and when it's not sticking to the attachment.
Or the side of the pan.
Right.
You can't beat a KitchenAid mixer.
No, you cannot. We have the plus size. They make a large, a small, and a mini as well.
So what is this, the big one?
This is the plus. They make a large one as
Let's
well.
see, that's the 275 watt KitchenAid,
Right.
which does a fabulous
Plenty.
job.
Now that our dough is ready, we're going to take it out. I forgot to mention this earlier, you also need parchment paper as well. You're going to stick this out because the dough will not stick to this. You're going to line your sheet pans, you're going to line your counter, and you're not going to spray anything on the parchment paper. The dough will not stick to this in the oven, nor on your counter when you're rolling it out. So, another note. Whenever you are rolling it out, you need to put flour on your rolling pin, you need to put flour in your dough, and you need to sprinkle flour on your parchment paper just as precaution.
In your dough also?
Mm-hmm. You need to sprinkle your dough with it as well. So, I'm going to come to the other side of my counter here, and I'm going to lay out my parchment paper so that I give myself plenty of room for rolling. Give yourself a very generous amount too. Don't be shy with it. Split it right down the middle. And I'm actually going to turn mine over.
So we're gonna roll it over there?
Yes.
So you want me to bring the dough over?
Mm-hmm. Just bring the bowl. And because the dough is already tacky and it's sticking to itself, you can pretty much just pour it right onto the parchment paper from the bowl. Now, like I said earlier, you're going to make sure that you have some flour. I'm going to grab my other half measuring cup. And you're going to sprinkle just a generous amount onto your parchment paper.
A generous amount?
A generous amount. All right, so now that our dough is finished in the mixer, we're going to roll it out. Notice I have sprinkled not only my parchment paper with flour, but my dough in the bowl as well. So now we can just pour it out right onto the paper. There we go. None left in the bowl. So I'm going to set that aside for later because we're also going to use that same bowl for our icing. So
do you want me to wash the bowl?
right. So while he is washing the bowl, I am going to sprinkle our rolling pin with flour as well. And our dough just a tad bit more. Now, for this part, make sure that your hands are washed because, yes, you are going to have to handle your dough with your hands because you need to make sure it's all clumped together before you begin to roll it out. So I'm just taking any residual flour from the parchment paper and just sprinkling it right on there. Not only will this make it not stick to your parchment paper, it will make it not stick to your rolling pin either. So just toss it on there. Now this is where you're going to use your hands a lot. You are going to, because my rolling pin is not long enough to cover all of the parchment paper, you are going to start in the middle, smush it down to your desired thickness, and begin rolling on either direction. Notice how my dough is not sticking to my rolling pin. This is what your flour is for.
If you're making cookies for somebody who's not in your immediate family, wear a mask.
Right. Because this is just for my family, it doesn't really matter because we're around each other anyway. That is not to say you should not follow the guidelines of the CDC. Yes, you have to make sure to roll it out all 4 directions. Top to bottom, bottom to top, side to side. On both sides. Because I have found that if your dough is not the same thickness, even when you cut it, if on one side of your shape it's thicker than the other, it's going to affect the bake time. Now we are going to, just a note, we're going to cook these in the oven for 8 to 15 minutes, just depending on how like golden brown you like your dough, or you like your cookies.
What if you like them well done?
If you like them like on borderline burned, you're going to cook for the full 15 minutes. All right, now I'm going to grab a paper towel.
You need to smush it out some more. There's like a big hump in the center.
It's all one thickness.
No, it's humped in the center. I'm looking at it.
We're not making hump cookies.
Shut up. Now, I'm going to come to the other side of the camera and grab our cookie cutters.
No, I'm
Dad,
serious. There's a hump right here.
if you'll go and grab our pan over there and line it with some parchment paper. Alright, I personally love the snowman, and you do not have to flour your shape. Just keep that in mind.
How's that?
That I need more parchment paper. That's not gonna cover the sides. But it was near perfect. All right, now that I know my dough is going to be one thickness, I can begin to cut my shapes out and set them aside as I'm doing so.
How's that?
Perfect. So, as soon as you get them cut, transfer them to your pan, because like I said, this is a very delicate dough, and if you're not careful, you will tear your shape.
Yeah, don't get rough with your dough.
Just be very careful. Don't take a rush. Don't be in a rush. What am I saying?
I don't know what you're saying.
Now I'm going to make a couple of each shape, so I also love the present as well. I just think the shape is really pretty.
I love presents too.
Now, if you find that your shape begins to just tear at the edges just slightly, you can take your finger and kind of just makeshift weld it together.
Weld it? You gonna weld cookie dough?
Yep, we certainly are.
Oh, that's a good one.
That was
Thick
a good
one.
one. It's because it's right in the center of my dough. Yep, so just pop them out of the cookie cutters. Ooh, stick them on your pan. And if you find that they're not just immediately coming out of your cookie cutters, you can just kind of slightly dip your fingers onto the dough, just push it out the other side. But when you do that, be careful so as to not tear your dough. Just like this. Just slightly push on all sides, just to not tear your dough. Perfect. And depending on how big it was when you rolled it, you can get a lot of different shapes out of this. Yep. I'm going to stick more to the snowman, stocking, and present just because their shapes are a little less defined. So they're going to be a little bit easier to decorate when they come out of the oven.
So there's not as many angles.
Right.
On the
Not as
edge.
many angles and not as many opportunities for the dough to tear it on your cutter. Right. And if you don't have cookie cutters, just get creative. I did not buy these until last time I made this recipe. Before that, I just took a knife and I just started to cut some shapes. You can also take a cup and cut them like that. There's really no rhyme or reason to this.
There's no right or wrong way.
Right.
Wrong, right.
So just do whatever feels good.
What if you like to eat raw cookie dough?
I do not recommend that. Normally I would say go ahead, but because this has like an entire raw egg in it, I would not
Bad
advise
idea.
that. If you are that person, or if you're vegan, or if you just don't like eggs, you can always find an egg substitute, or you can use egg whites. And because this dough will not rise a terrible amount in the oven, you can set the shapes pretty close together on your baking sheet. And you can maximize the space you get on your baking sheet as well. Those chips were so good.
Vegan, isn't that like Mr. Spock in Star Trek? Wasn't he from the planet Vegan?
I don't know, I've never seen Star Wars.
Star Trek.
Star Trek, I've never seen that either.
What?
I thought you knew that.
Well, I know what you're going to be watching at Christmas.
I'm a Harry Potter person, 150%.
What house are you?
I am a Hufflepuff. Proud, proud, proud Hufflepuff.
What house am I?
You're either a Slytherin or a Gryffindor.
Slytherin.
He just likes Draco Malfoy. So I'm gonna get one more really good snowman out of my dough.
Who's that guy that dresses in all black?
That's Snape.
Yeah, I
So
like Snake.
now, Snape with a P. So now that all of our shapes are maximized on our baking sheet, we are going to just open the oven. Do not stick them on the top shelf because these are very delicate and they burn very easily. And like I said, cook for 8 to 15 minutes, just depending on your preference.
All right, so this dough that we have left right here, what are we going to do with all this dough?
So the dough that we have left, what we're going to do, we're going to kind of smudge it together. We're going to reshape it into a ball, and then we're going to re-roll it out so we can reshape it. All right, so post cookie baking time, this is what they should look like. If yours went horribly wrong, I'm very sorry about that, but this is what they should look like.
Yummy.
Crisp on the bottom edges, but nice and flaky white on top.
See how some of them
Unless-
are turning slightly
right.
brown on the edge? That means they're just right.
And the perfect thickness and not burnt on the bottom. That is exactly how you want them to be.
So you got to watch your cookies pretty close. Don't put them
Right.
in and then go watch TV and forget about them.
Right. Maximum baking time. Maximum. You should not leave them in for more than 15 minutes at most. So now we're going to start on the icing. I'm going to grab my ingredient list once again. So we need 3 cups of powdered sugar. So I'm going to get my handy dandy measuring cup and just measure out 3 cups here. And like I said, not the biggest deal if you go over or under just slightly.
You want me to warm the water up?
That's about 1.5. That's another whole, and then we need 1 more half.
So how much sugar?
3 cups of powdered sugar.
All right.
Now vanilla, you're just going to add to taste.
Whoa,
I'm gonna do
that's a
about
lot
that
of
much vanilla. All right, we're gonna close that, and then we're going to take just a sprig of water, not much at all. We're gonna add that, and then not much milk at all. The icing is it's not very precise, so ingredient-wise, you kind of are just adding to whatever your heart aims for.
So this is almond milk too.
Right, almond milk, you can add whatever milk you want.
Silk.
Almond milk is my favorite preference.
All right, and then we're gonna mix it up.
Mix on low for about 2 minutes.
All right, let's get a video of that. No butter in this.
Right, no butter. And then we're going to add a little bit more milk, a little bit more of water. Because you need this icing to be very thin. This icing should not be very thick. And I'm going to take my red spatula. And I'm also going to add just a little bit more milk as well, almond milk. I'm going to turn that off first. And if you're vegan or vegetarian, almond milk is also really great to have. So that is where I'm going to stop mixing my icing. And another note, before you start icing your cookies, you want to make sure that they are fully cooled. Fully cooled.
Is that all mixed up right?
Mm-hmm. So now
Don't we
another
have to put-
pro tip.
We're not gonna put food coloring in it now?
Well, yes, but I want to have some white. So I'm gonna get a Ziploc bag. Grab me a couple of little Ziplocs. I'm gonna take our bowl and let that last little bit fall off the whisk. And then I'm going to place a paper towel right underneath it to prevent any mess on our mixing bowl and the mixer itself.
How many Ziplocs we need?
3. Okay, that's fine then. Kind of just remove the littlest, tiniest bit. And because your icing is white at this point, you don't need to add any food coloring to this one. I'm just gonna take a Ziploc and act as a piping bag just because that's what I feel is the easiest. And like I said, I don't want very much white at all. So after just a little bit, I'm going to set this aside. So now I'm going to remove the paper towel from the whisk and the mixer, and I'm going to substitute our bowl back underneath it. Now, I'm going to add just a smidgen of the classic blue food coloring.
A smidgen's that much.
Just the littlest little bit. Just the tiniest little bit in the center. And we're going to turn that back on. Notice how it's already a very rich blue. Even from that one tiny little droplet I put.
Why don't you make it bluer than that? Like make it really
Because you're gonna add some red to the other ones.
That's like pastel blue.
Yeah,
No, that's not blue enough. You want blue. So make it blue.
just a moment. Okay, I'm going to lift back up my mixer.
Let's do some more blue. That's just really.
Daddy, I have to take some of it out so I can add the green and red. So I can make it more blue. But you gotta give me a moment.
Okay.
Because the icing is super thick right now. It's 11 o'clock. Okay, that's enough. Because you don't want to run out, you know. All right. Going to just take a little bit, put it back on the whisk. Now we're going to set our blue aside for the moment. And now we are going to add some green. Again, just the littlest bit, not much at all. And we're going to put that on low for about 20 seconds. Amp it up to medium if need be. Oh, I'm sorry. Now it's turning an almost teal color. So I'm gonna add a little bit more green. But I'm first going to take my spatula and kind of scrape the sides like that. Okay, and I'm gonna add some more green. Again, just the littlest bit. That will be red, no problem.
Now adding red in.
And I'm actually gonna scrape the sides again. Just because you can see that there's not a whole lot in the center. And I'm actually going to add a little bit more too. Alright, so now that our cookies are out and completely cooled, so we're going to ice our cookies in no particular design or shape. I'm just kind of going with what I'm wanting to do. I'm going to start with the snowman in the corner. Just because he's so cute and little. Now, Dad, if you'll grab me the red one, the red bag.
So you cut a hole in the bottom of the bag?
Right, just the smallest little hole at the end. You do not want a super big one because that is going to make your icing just come out in gobs, and we don't want that. I like a lot of icing on my cookies, so that, like I said, no particular pattern or shape, just kind of whatever you're feeling will work. Yep. So let's do the outro. Let's do our outro. Intro, outro. So these are our final cookies. We did make more, but those are off camera. Final look. All done.
Thank you. Hang
You're
on.
welcome.
Merry Christmas.
Shouldn't have mentioned buffalo.
Happy New Year.
Hindsight.